What up? Welcome to Star Trek Iskandar from us. That's who we are. That's who we are. Hi. Anyway, welcome to tonight's session of Star Trek Iskandar, which is our tabletop game set in the Star Trek universe in the post-Nemesis era, run using the Fate Core system, slightly homebrewed. Uh, you will know us. This is the second session of the episode named So Shall You Reap, run by me, Kath, the GM for this time. Uh, we will tonight continue to operate utilizing the usual helps and hinders rules. If you wish to send a minor help or a minor hinder, just fling them. Although we do not have the capacity to notice, correct, when helps or hinders have gone in, which is great because technical difficulties that may change after the break. But if you announce in chat, and my minions will inform me when you have helped and when you have hindered, when you've been naughty and when you've been nice, or maybe when these people have been naughty or nice. So without any, I see you put it in the chat, without any further ado, I shall dive into it with a quick previously, because I'm not in a position where I can very conveniently just fob it off onto the ranking officer in character to give us a summary. So last time, the crew dealt with fallout from the Timalian incident, or the Strange thing, depending on who you ask. The new chief engineer, Lieutenant Abigail Reyes, arrived and upset lots of people, mostly the sad boys. Our sad boys, Ensign Strange and Lieutenant Casey, are taking some time to work through their problems. Lieutenant Casey discovered that he's probably dying, and that's bad. And Captain Athan set off for meetings to still deal with the consequences and the fallout at Starfleet Command. However, in amidst this, the Iskandar still has a job to do. It's dispatched into Klingon territory on an errand of mercy, which I believe is actually the title of the very first original series episode in which Klingons appeared, which was, if I'm wrong, I sound like a weird nerd. If I'm right, I'm accidentally cleverer than I thought I was. Into Klingon space to assist at the world of Hatoria, which has been a agricultural world which has been afflicted by a crop blight, which the world is on quarantine. This quarantine has only been lasting for a few weeks. And thus, whilst the world is not in dire straits yet, they are feeling the tightness of the belt and would like to get this situation unfucked. Starfleet have asked to be involved because they are very good at very quickly running a relief operation and bringing scientists to fix the problem, while the Klingon Empire, for various reasons, is being a bit more dithery. You know, they don't exactly have medical ships and science ships lying around to quickly help their own people. Due to the nature of the terraforming project, which made Hatoria habitable and a decent agricultural venture in the first place, its atmosphere is somewhat heavily ionized, and thus, whilst transporter technology is possible, it is possible to use transporters from the surface and into orbit. It is difficult, which means that rather than dick around trying to constantly difficultly beam people from the surface to orbit, the Iskandar has landed for the first time ever. This Intrepid class starship has flown through the atmosphere and has set down on the physical surface of health. There, the team met with the ruling family of Hatoria, the House of Rahtekk, led by Lady Rahtekk herself, a bit of an old battle axe of a Klingon who still seems somewhat wary in her old age. Also met were her three children. The rather thus far appeared to be Bolshi warrior Kvek, her daughter, her son Judim, who appears to thus far be friendly, and also her son Luth, who appears to have been taking responsibility for the scientific inquiries into the blight afflicting the world. With instructions by Starfleet to set up a relief station at the main settlement on the world and to try to find a cure for this crop blight, for the moment, the team from Iskandar is accepting the hospitality of the House of Rahtekk, has accepted lodgings up at their main house, and whilst operations are underway to try to synchronize the research laboratory workshop of young Luth, assisted by Lieutenant Casey, and Ensign Strange, the member of the engineering team with the most experience with Klingon technology, at the urging of Judim, the House of Rahtekk is going to be putting on a welcome feast, despite the many reasons why that's a terrible idea when you have limited resources. So yes, that was last time. Present in the house, not count in the main building, the Great Hall, Caverns Hall, is not counting Ensign Strange, who is en route, is Commander Salandra leading, Lieutenant Kantos, Lieutenant Zal, and Lieutenant Casey as the away team, but the entire ship's nearby. Yes, I think that is everything. However, we will, whilst Zal, Kantos, and probably to be joined by Talandra, will at least be able to familiarize themselves with the assistance of the Jintak steward, Mehed. Will be getting them settled into the suite of rooms which they have. Down in the workshop, Lutz's workshop, Strange can arrive to find Casey and Luth still at work, and presently finding Casey has not been able to uncover much more than what Luth already knew about the crop blight, the
Tugh'non.
Tugh'non, yes, sorry, I realized I didn't have my big old list of, which roughly translates into swift rot. So yes, Strange, you can come into this bit of a, you can definitely immediately tell a jerry-rigged room. You can easily tell that this was more of an engineer's facility than a science lab, and that someone has done as good a job as they could trying to convert it, like adjust the sensors and adjust the output. But you'll find, arrive with your toolkit to find Luth and Casey bent over a table section with sensor arrays and a few samples, and neither of them looking like they're getting particularly far. So yeah, Luth is studying stuff, and Casey Strange comes in.
Ensign, hands a pad over. This is everything that we've been able to verify on the Tugh'non.
Okay.
I haven't made much progress beyond this initial assessment kindly provided to us by Luth here, but I'm sure with three capable sets of eyes on it, then we'll be able to make some progress. Do you have any immediate questions? Oh, forgive me. This is Ensign Strange, one of our engineers.
Ah, an engineer. Very good. I assume that you're actually here rather than to look at the crop, then to help us synchronize the facilities in my workshop with your ship and its laboratories.
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. Do you think this is a task which is going to take a while? I have some understanding of the optical data connections which might be necessary, but...
Let's have a look, and Strange will start kind of looking around the room and trying to come up with some kind of estimate of how long is this going to take to sort out the jury-rigging job.
Luth will get up at that and will answer questions very, very quickly, and sort of be able to explain, especially as he probably quite quickly realizes that Strange is talking the same language as him, so to speak. He will kind of explain what bits are what in terms of this bit of a Frankenstein's monster. But make me an engineering check.
Which dice? +3 though.
It's an evening's work, you'd
Okay.
say.
Okay, so yeah, Strange will
Mhm.
relay that to Luth and also to Lieutenant Casey.
Ah, fabulous. In which case, I think that there's absolutely no point in you or me, and he's gesturing to Strange at this, wasting any time attending the feast. My mother has agreed with my brother should be put on.
Yeah, that sounds sensible to me.
I wouldn't.
He'll kind of look over to Casey in case Casey's going to say no.
Mhm.
Orders are you must go to the party.
You shall go to the ball.
But I wanna.
Luth, can I get your opinion on as to whether or not that will, how we would say, ruffle any feathers with the rest of your family?
Well, if I understand correctly, then you have an ensign engineer here who's been sent to assist in the workshop, correct? Whereas
Yes.
you are the chief science officer. You should go.
Very well. Although, for
I'm
the record,
sure that
forgive me, for the record, I'm a lot like yourself in that I rather don't like crowds, but I will keep up appearances.
I don't specifically dislike crowds. I just have better things to do than indulge my brother and his need for everyone's approval.
I see. But yes, I will attend. You, Ensign, are free to carry on working here.
Oh, Ensign Strange, I suppose I shouldn't at least deny you the... If you want to attend the feast, I would understand.
No, I'm quite happy. Quite happy carrying on working in here.
Splendid. Let's get to work then. I don't know if you need to change into something more ceremonial, Lieutenant. It's not a full formal event, but I don't know how much you have in terms of Starfleet regalia.
I don't know either. I'm going to make an inquiry as to what everyone else is doing, and then follow suit with them.
Very well.
Okay.
Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to, with the assistance of your ship, have a much better opportunity to analyze these samples. But we will make this workshop fit for our purpose.
Well, thank you for your time, and I'll report back to you as soon as I'm able.
This sort of makes a noise, and like even while Casey is saying that last sentence, is sort of leaning into Strange and starting to discuss like the connectivity plans that they have ahead. Or frankly, far more enamored with that.
Yeah, and Strange will respond to that while still clearly a bit awkward about the situation because Casey's still in the room and is like, I don't know how this dynamic works now.
How do we work?
Well, goodbye. I leave.
I should go. For like all of you, for the rest of you, all even joined by Casey, this is not the sort of thing where you'd be breaking out the dress uniforms. Luth's commentary is likely a lack of understanding of any nuances of Starfleet's. Like, if you're a Klingon, sure, like, you won't show... He would probably put on his own baldric with his house insignia on it and not show up in his jumpsuit from the workshop. But
yeah.
Starfleet doesn't have those sorts of... You either have your duty uniform or your dress uniform.
Yeah. And this is not a Starfleet ceremony, so he wouldn't be expected to wear a dress uniform for that occasion.
Well, if this was a super formal Klingon ceremony, then yeah, but this is just a nice dinner. And it's not even a fancy dinner. It's just you're just getting a nice dinner.
Hell yeah!
So, within about half an hour of Casey being ushered out of the workshop, you seem to have been, as a party, somewhat assigned the young servant fellow Anna to at least to wait on you, or at least visit you and bring you down from the suites of rooms to the main hall when
That's
the time is
Arno
ready.
doing that.
Yeah, Anna is doing that.
You mentioned a Mahed too.
Okay,
Is that...
Mehed is the Jintak, which is a very important position within a Klingon house. He is the steward. He is essentially the most important non-family member. He is the right hand and direct assistance to Rahtekk.
Gonfalonieri.
Hmm?
It's the Gonfalonieri.
Yes. Like, while he'll have shown you to the rooms in a, like, this is what we have presented for you, he will not have, like, told you where you leave your boots out to get cleaned. That kind of scale. He's responsible for your hospitality, not your comfort. Of a reminder then of some of the others, you also have Sihar, who is the marshal of the house. Yeah, those are the three staffers, and there are a few other servant staff and some warriors, although most of the warriors you've seen about were the ones who were with Kvek when she confronted you at the main gate. Yes, the Klingon butler. Jintak is a canonical thing. Except we only saw a Jintak before when it was actually Alexander Rozhenko traveling back from the future in time to try to convince his father to treat him as a kid differently, impersonating somebody else. Late next gen, season 7 is wild, guys.
Well.
Yes, and you are brought. So Anna will be the one who's like practically ringing the dinner bell for you all, because Mehed has better things to do than that. But it's called a feast. It is a nice big dinner. You have really, it's only one big long ass fucking table down before the dais in the main hall where Rahtekk would sit. She is seated at the head. There doesn't actually, however, seem to be a formal seating arrangement because these are Klingons. There is food laid out. There are just big platters, largely meats, which on the one hand is the Klingon preferred diet, and especially for the nobility, but also may reflect like other supplies that are a little bit more precious. But your Targ meat is supplies are fine. And yeah, it does seem from the fact that they are benches pressed up against the table that people grab food and get up and help themselves to the barrels of blood wine at the foot of the table. It's a bit more of a milling atmosphere than a seating plan atmosphere. Though when you first arrive, Judim will have positioned his... Kvek is nowhere in sight. Luth is nowhere in sight. Judim has positioned himself actually more in a middle spot. And so there are a few of like the other high-level members of the house staff, including like Mehed there. But there is space for you all to sit yourselves down. And that can shift as you get food, take food, get drink. If you drink it, don't. There is food options there. It is mostly fairly plain fare for like Talandra and anyone else who doesn't want to eat Targ meat. But it's more like you're having the side. It's the shitty vegetarian option. You're actually just having a few side dishes. But as people start to settle, Rahtekk she doesn't stand, but she does grab her a big enormous fuck-off tankard of blood wine. And as she does so, people fall quiet. We gather this evening to welcome our Starfleet friends, to share with them the bounty from our houses, days of strength, and to get to know one another ahead of the coming challenges that lie before us. And I'm sure that united is how we will resolve the situation ahead. So please, my guests, drink deep, fill your bellies of my blood wine and my foods and my plenty, and secure yourselves, bolster yourselves for the coming days. She sort of half-heartedly lifts it, but Judim kind of grabs his tankard and gives a big like kapla, with table thudding as he does so, and swigs a lot of his blood wine back. Yes, you can dig in.
Guy who always tries to keep the party going. We approve of him. He takes up the slack when other people are like, I'm tired actually.
We too have a Cantos.
Hey up.
Judim will kind of, well, it'll be Rahtekk who shortly afterwards will peer down the table towards Casey. Lieutenant, has my son not managed to stir himself from the workshop?
Your son is very busy with one of our engineers working on some of the systems down there that should hopefully start contributing to our understanding of the plague.
She looks like she might say something, doesn't. And Judim pipes up with, my brother could always find something to fill the day to stop him from ever having a little fun or speaking to another living being or feeling something ever in his life. You should not take his excuses, Lieutenant. He'll make them for as long as the day lasts.
I hope I have not been impolitic by not insisting in his presence.
Impolitic? It's dinner. We're offering you dinner.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
Any offense comes, it's my brother who's done you all a great offense by not sitting down to share our bounty with you.
It's a very good bounty. I do like this. He gestures to any plate in front of him.
Gach. It's a big old bowl of squirmy gach.
Is this fresher than the? Yes. Is it a fresher batch than the one that was offered to us initially?
Yes, we usually keep the most simple, unflavored, no spices, nothing about them for what we offer to guests. It is part of the tradition. It will be simple fare. It is amenable to all who wish to come to our door. Whereas this, they have been lightly sautéed, right? Not enough to kill them, because there's nothing worse than dead gach, but enough to keep a bit of wriggle in there and brings out the flavors. He grabs himself a handful, slurps them up, and ushers towards you.
Casey is showing, because it's unfair that both of my characters like pro gak. Casey is showing typical human levels of, it's wriggling, but sporting. Yes, let's do this. Stiff up a lip. What?
So after that, Judim will and he's clearly very adept at being the center of conversation. But he will pivot from there to Cantos, as the very least, the dude can read basic body language here.
The party boy of your family.
The least uncomfortable out of the Starfleet lot.
So, you have come here to save. I'd say save, and I'm sure you will have many glorious deeds with a laboratory over the next matter of days. And this situation will blow over as it was. But if my mother insists that you're to be here, at the very least, surely you can give us a tale or some incidents of grandeur. What does a Starfleet heroic tale look like? Did you stare through a microscope for 3 whole hours without blinking?
Well, not really my area of expertise. I'm not much of a scientist or an engineer myself. I'm more of a pilot.
Aha! A pilot. So, battle stories, surely.
Battle stories, interesting flight stories out of asteroid belts and through uncharted nebulae.
So Starfleet does know how to have a little fun.
On occasion.
On occasion.
And Cantos will launch into what story is Cantos going to tell? I'm trying to remember things that have happened that aren't just here's the shit I got up to last episode.
I mean, it's a good story.
It's a good one. But it's like, surely there's other ones, but what was Luke's episode called?
One.
The last one, Occam's Razor.
Occam's Razor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cantos will launch into basically a retelling of that, but with the Romulan politics shaved off. Like,
Some
we leave
diabolical
out,
foe.
Yeah, we leave out the Romulan bits because that's. We don't tell that bit in Klingon Company.
But some good battle tales, yes.
Yeah, so some good battle tales of the fights that the ship has been involved in, and
That's pretty much it.
flying
Fight
out.
we've had.
He's basically the other thing I was trying to run through is like, what have we done that has been basically a ship fight? Fuck that episode.
Make me a rapport check, not for like it. It's more for the subtleties of success rather than is it a shit story. I will assume your character can tell a story. It's a difficulty one.
That is +2.
Okay, that is a success. Yes, that is a success. Cantos not only is good at just telling a good story, but he is adept at adjusting depending on Judim's reactions of what bits to big up, what bits to skim over.
Talk more about the fight bits or more about how many barrel rolls I did.
Yeah, Judim seems actually to be pretty happy with even just the adrenaline junkie elements of it, rather than explicitly only going fight. But yes, that the story goes down well, and like afterwards, Judim gets up to his feet and goes, "More blood wine for all of us. Let me drag the barrel over here," and he will proceed to do so. Prop up the damn thing next to himself to just dip his tankard into. God, in an age of COVID, Klingon dining habits are just making me neurotic as hell.
This does not feel like a socially distanced Klingon gathering.
We all put our hands in the gach bowl, and then we all dink our tankards into the blood wine barrel.
Where's
God.
the hand sanitizer on this table?
Why
is that Klingon wearing a mask only over his mouth?
I'm sorry, I've just forced Mike to edit a segment of this out about YouTube. Yeah, and so he will make sure Cantos doesn't get asked if Cantos is having more.
Cantos gets up anyway as soon as the barrels stopped being dragged over.
Yeah, or like Judim grabs their tankard, fills it, passes it back to them. Like others are welcome to have some more. And the evening is largely one of Judim-fueled revelry. Rahtekk.
Cantos is definitely going to ask Judim for a story in return. Tell us what glories have House Rahtekk to their name.
He will tell some tales. He does not tell anything of a battle story. It actually sounds like that whilst he is fairly well traveled, he is mostly a diplomat by Klingon standards. He will talk of a time where he had to resolve a dispute with between the house to which House Rahtekk is sworn to, whose name is not immediately to hand, and it doesn't matter right now, and another one of the vassal houses by he made them get into a drinking contest to resolve this ancient feud, and by the end of it made them, while drunk, swear that the feud was over and resolved, and then the morning after told them all about this, embellished it even further while they were hazy on the recollection, and both sides were too embarrassed to want to call him a liar when they were too hazy on the details themselves. Rahtekk mostly sits back and observes, keeps quiet, keeps her own counsel over the course of the evening. She will talk if talks to. For anyone who is not immediately wanting to be swept up in Judim's bolshiness, Mehed is probably the better company, and who will discuss just a little of. I mean, he will ask like questions, but if pressed, he will discuss a little of the history of Hatoria, a little of the house, as more normal fucking dinner conversation for those who don't want to hear about another sick backflip that a Klingon bro did once.
Landra
Oh, sorry, bro.
Yes, yeah. Like my head is smart enough to know what a Vulcan is,
and not comment on the fact that she's like eating a single parsnip. Like,
it's like parsnip and rice. That's the thing. In fact, he will explain. We do not. I apologize, Commander. We do not have as much of the Dradso to serve as we normally would, as obviously those are our most restricted supplies until the blight is done. But I can assure you that what we have are some of, found within my culture anyway, some of the most flavoursome for all. Though I will say the most flavoursome is because they are chewier. I would describe the flavour as meatier. That is why the noble households keep that. If you wish, and I mean no offence by this, I can see if we have any of the, what we would consider the more common varieties, which may be more to your palate.
This is quite sufficient, thank you. I'm finding it very enjoyable.
That is good. And he is polite, a bit dour, a bit. He is, for a Klingon, a bit of a busybody. But when he does talk about the history of the house and how it was settled about 300 years ago, granted to a Lord Cavan, for whom this building is named, and he talks a bit about the process of building of this place. And yes, indeed, rock and stone had to be shipped in from Kronos to get it built here in a traditional style, which Mehed does not appear to think of as an unnecessary indulgence. He seems to think this is a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Talandra will not judge their choices.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very attentive party guest.
So you're about a couple of hours into this. Some of you may be drunk. It's hard to not be if you are trying to keep pace with Judim with blood wine. But Judim is a little pushy. He is a little pushy. So
do I need to roll to see how well Cantos manages to quaff rather than actually consume the blood?
Yeah, if anyone who you think, so really I guess it's for if anyone thinks they might be caught into Judim's orbit, I guess it's a deceive check. It's only a difficulty 1. So
Casey fancy himself a tough guy now because of the blood rain incident.
Yeah.
Or is he
That was what I
super
was
fucking
thinking.
wary after the blood rain incident
It could
and he's
go
going,
either
we're
way.
not doing that
I'm
again.
gonna roll a deceive, and we'll just base the result, base what he does on the result. Garbage.
Well, I've rolled
minus
0 on
two.
the dice and I don't think I've got points in this.
you don't have points in deceive.
I do! I do! I have 1 point in it as Cantos.
Oh, that's as a matched success. It's I keep saying matched success. That's a term from a completely different system. I always forget. It's always
I know what you mean, though.
a minor cost. The minor cost is at 1 point. Like Cantos does quaff, but he does get it wrong once, in that he accidentally pours a goddamn tankard all over it. Sorry, themselves, or to pour a goddamn tankard all over themselves. Like that's the succeed at a minor cost. At 1 point they get it
That's fair.
wrong, and there's just a tankard, blood wine
Just
everywhere.
blood wine
Judim
all over.
laughs. He doesn't like notice or think it. He just thinks that's hilarious. How's poor sweet boy Casey?
He got a minus 2, which I think is like it is flashbacks to blood rain. He doesn't really know what to do with himself. It's not that he's too arrogant and thinks, "Oh, I can handle blood wine." It's that he's
He
doing
knows
a
he
really
can't.
bad job at like pretending to have enough or pretending that he's keeping pace. He's just a mess.
And whenever he's nervous,
transparently.
whenever he's failing at the sloshing it around, someone looks at him, he's like, and takes like the nervous swig, and it's like, no, not the nervous swig.
And Judim is like one of those dining
Like the
companions
worst
who
response.
always make sure that your drink receptacle is topped up. He probably thinks he's being a great host.
Yeah.
Like, now, so at that point,
We'll nod along.
poor sweet tipsy Casey and a damp Cantos. How's Zal with all of this? Like, there's some ebullient Klingonness going on. None of them are being like, I was going to say shittier than we just seem to assume that Klingons might be shitty at other warriors. But no, Klingons are on good behavior.
I don't think Zal's like shy at saying, "I've got enough for now, thank you."
Yeah. And the thing is, then they don't push it. Like,
Yeah. Zal's like, I've got enough. They come to Slandra. She's like, no, thank you, and
Yeah.
carries on with her conversation. And
they
it's
don't
like,
push it.
oh,
I would slightly.
grown-ups can refuse their drink.
I really would just want Zal with the Klingons in general, but yes.
Oh well, I mean, at the moment it's pretty chill for Zal because at the moment Kavek isn't here, so this is a great opportunity to mingle with the rest of the house and just get the feel and maybe listen out to when Kavek gets mentioned and.
Are you trying to like actually learn a bit about Kavek during this?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, make me a.
Rapport?
I guess that'll be a rapport check.
Hell
Difficulty 1.
Oh, I've trounced it. I'm on a 5.
Oh, geez. Okay, so by like a really sort of courteous art. Zal's very smooth. He essentially starts out kind of asking about like the history of the house and the great heroes of the house, which he can then segue neatly into the children of the house. And just as one of the warriors, and this warrior actually seems like, oh yes, Kavek has great deeds in the war. Although actually, talking about heroes of the house, the first name which always comes up is Makag, the deceased Makag, who is spoken of as having performed great deeds in war, and what a tragedy. But the moment it starts to shift at all to Kvek, Judim overhears and goes, "You want to hear tales of my sister, Lieutenant?"
If you've got tales to tell.
Oh, I have so many tales to tell. Ones she wouldn't particularly like to hear. And whilst there's a bit of a shift at the table, eyes at most go to Rahtekk, and she doesn't do anything, so nobody seems inclined to stop shooting. Which story of my sister's great deeds shall we have? Great deeds in war. In war, of course, a great warrior is supposed to kill the enemy, correct? Although I'm sure in Starfleet, yes, indeed, I'm sure in Starfleet you have something of a different idea of what victory takes. Victory is succeeding in the task ahead of you, and well, maybe you try to minimize who you kill, but it's not about a body count. If I understand you correctly, it's not. Well, then maybe these tales of my sister are a little off color. She refused to take prisoners. Deemed that the Cardassians had chosen to destroy the Alpha Quadrant, so why should they be given any quarter? And of course, she would argue that she was captaining a tiny bird of prey, crew of only a dozen, so where would she put prisoners? Well, she could, I don't know, leave them on their ship, not shoot them like rats in a barrel. And he presses on with some degree of delight of an accusation that his sister blew the shit up out of disabled Cardassian warships when she didn't necessarily have to over the course of the war.
Cool, good to know. Great.
Cool story, bro.
Cool story, bro. Yeah.
Cool sister.
So just noting down a hint.
Very quickly, McCag is their deceased older brother.
Was the deceased eldest a brother?
Yeah.
Um,
I did not have that noted down, so thanks.
Cool. Mahed does look like he might be about to maybe kind of shift the topic, if only because where do you go? Like, it's one thing for Judim to hold everyone's attention with an awful story, but there needs to be a topic after that. And so Mahed looks like he does, again, look at Rahtekk, who doesn't really do anything, and looks, which is the point where one of the interior doors pretty much slams open, and in stalks Kvek.
Oh, phew, thank God.
Is Shadim still telling one of the stories about her
Great.
at the point where she comes in?
Mostly at the tail end. A lot of the table kind of falls quiet, but Judim looks up and just grins at her and says, "Ah, sister, there you are. I was just regaling our guests with some of your great stories of deeds in war." Kvek barely like she goes to the table, she grabs a tankard, she goes to the barrel of blood wine which Judim was hoarding, doesn't look at him as she stands over and pulls it. "I wouldn't expect you to know anything about deeds in war, Judim," and just walks straight past him towards the head of the table. She stops before her mother, lifts the drink, sits down, looks at Mahed, who slides down a bit before she sits down in front of Talandra. "So you are the leader of this crew,
I am.
and you are the one who has been asked by, that my mother has deemed should be asked to help this planet, our people, our world. I don't care about your uniform, your rank, your titles. Why should I think that you are capable or worthy of being the one sent to save, to help?"
I would have hoped that our science expertise would have recommended us to the task. But more importantly than that, the crew of the Iskandar, as with every crew in Starfleet, is dedicated to the ideals of the Federation. The Klingons are our allies. We would not abandon any Klingon in need.
I didn't ask why you would abandon us. I asked why I should think that why I should place any trust or expectation in you at all. What are your deeds? What is your worthiness?
So, Talandra doesn't know how to Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to say is, because my ability to technobabble has fallen out my ears,
It's not easy.
Talandra begins by just sort of relaying the advancements to science that have been discovered aboard the Iskandar. Like, you know, the sort of minor things that always get like fed back to Starfleet scientific, and like, you know, stuff that Casey's developed and like advancements made in the engineering section, and just kind of as if like she doesn't quite know how to tell a Klingon story, but she's like, these are things that we've discovered. That's impressive. And like she talks about the like things that a first officer cares about, stuff like, you know, mental health and retention rates.
Oh no, I love her. Kvek stares throughout this. Drinks. Drains it. Thumbs it down. Looks at her mother. "You have asked for bureaucrats when we have needed heroes." Pushes back off the table. Gets up and stalks back out. head slides back. I am not sure, Commander, that you could have given her a response that would have satisfied her.
I do not believe so. Nevertheless, it in no way dampens our desire or ability to bring what help we can.
That is agreeable to hear, though obviously it is the Lady Rahtek's wish that you be here, and by her word that you were requested. Certainly we here are all grateful. And yeah, it starts to peter out a bit from there, from between Judim telling unclassy stories to Kvek making a fucking scene. Like, it's kind of a bit of the tone. And soon after, Rahtekk stands, thanks everyone for their time, and it proclaims that she's going to retire for the evening. And we'll speak with you all in the next day. You can, like, it those who want to stick it out can stick it out, because Judim looks like he's probably going to be camped out here for as long as he damn well pleases. But it is quite clear that you can wrap it up.
Like the moment Rahtekk is out the door, Talandra's like, finally. She will wait. She will wait like 30 seconds,
Exactly.
clearly ticking off in her brain, and then she'll just be like, it's been very pleasant. Good evening.
Folks can break off. What's Casey's plan? Does Casey stick it out, or does he bail?
I think soon after Talandra goes, once he's registered that Talandra has gone, he will drunkenly say, and I think he addresses it to Kantos because he doesn't really know where else to look. I should go and help with the plague now. He stands up. I will go to Luth. I'll tell him what an excellent party he's missed.
You do that, Sam, but I'd also recommend at some point you call it a night and go to bed. And drink some water before you go to bed.
At some point. At some point. Yes.
Don't forget the water. You drink the water before you do the bed.
It is impossible to do otherwise.
No, you could do otherwise by just not doing the water.
Med kind of grabs like Anna at one point in this, and is like quietly but not like secretively just telling the young lad to like make sure that water is brought up to the suites.
I'm going to, that promise made, I'm going to stagger out of the hall.
Cool.
And go to work. No one's
okay, well, I guess we'll pick that.
Kantos shakes their head, goes back to whatever dregs of conversation that they're still in.
Make me an empathy check, actually, for the fact that Kantos has been pretty deep into conversations with Judim for the night and Judim's entourage. Because every young noble kid needs like an entourage of like randos. No one's really sure what their rank is. They are subservient, but sometimes have enough authority to be bolshy in their own right. They're just there.
It's just even his bros.
Yeah.
Travis.
Yeah.
Empathy check, that is 4.
Okay, you're pretty sure Judim's generally full of shit in a lot of his tales. At best, they are embellishments. He tells them very well. It is certainly at this stage of not knowing him for very long, it is difficult to tell whether or not he just knows how to tell a crowd pleaser or if he just doesn't have good stories. But what
stories he has, he tells them at least reasonably well.
He tells them very well. He is clearly very good at being likable. But also they're all like, and then we partied hard and fixed it, and then there was some, cute young thing involved. Like, or if there's a fight, it was like, and me and the lads had a scrap against these others. There's not a lot of substance, you think?
Okay.
Like, Kantos could tell stories of, I did a sick barrel roll, piloting a starship in a battle. Yeah, there's not a lot of substance to Judim's tales. But maybe they're just those aren't good stories in retelling. Hard to say.
You had to be there.
Maybe it had to be there. Sometimes battle stories like, and then we all almost fucking died. It's not a good story. And like, I imagine Zal is probably friendly, but also going to peel off rather than.
Yeah, like for the Zal, very much this is my first gig as chief security officer of the Iskandar, so I'm gonna play it cool. And to be honest, that whole thing that got very close to not cool. So
was it just because it was Talandra in the firing line, and she is the epitome of "I'ma be cool" throughout this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can peel off. We'll go then to we'll jump to Casey. God damn it, to Strange. It's written right in front of me. To Strange and Luth, down in the cool. Down in the workshop. Certainly, Luth is showing no interest whatsoever in talking about anything but the work. But he's perfect. He's conversational about the work. He's not brusque about the work. But there's no like, so how'd you get to be an engineer? There's no small talk in anything that he does. So I can't. Does Strange try to engage Luth at all?
Not in small talk. That's like the worst kind of talk for a sad boy. Like there will probably be appreciative kind of comments about some of the work that's been done to jury rig the workshop into a makeshift lab. There will be it comments about the kind of the general state of the place and the work. And I was like, oh, have you done that with such and such and a so and so, that kind of thing. So it's kind of tangential to the work kind of comments, but not like small talk.
Yeah. Like Luth will seemingly contentedly enough like explain and be responsive to that, but there's a fairly consistent undercurrent of grumbling. Like clearly he doesn't feel like he is getting the resources that he'd like, the support that he'd like. If he had it his way, this would be a bigger facility. He'd have more opportunities to develop.
Yeah. If that's the kind of tone, then Strange might try and kind of try to tease out a couple more things about that in that kind of grumbling one engineer to another sort of way of I hear you about not getting enough resources, that same hat, that kind of conversation. But still keeping it kind of tangential to work rather than veering off into the uncharted wilds of small talk. That's what the Cantuses are for.
Yeah. No, Luth does. The thing is, if you can get someone complaining about something they want to complain about, it's really, really easy. So it does get Luth to sigh. Well, my training was in starship design, weapons development, because in the Empire, if you wish to go into engineering or research of anything, then you're a noble son, then of course they want you to go into starship design or weapons development. That is obviously, if you can't be a warrior, then obviously you have to make sure you provide the ships and the weapons for the warriors. So that was learning my trade at the Kether Institute, but my time afterwards as a researcher at High Command was... We had disagreements of how things should proceed, and so I returned here and have hoped and intended to try to improve the agricultural technological development of this world, but as you can see, it is limited in its successes. My mother would much rather continue to fall into herself and not speak, whilst my siblings would prefer to act as if everything here will carry on the same way as it has for 300 years. And that there couldn't possibly be change.
Given that, it's pretty remarkable what you have managed with.
All taken from my labs on Kronos. And brought back here to set up, and thus maintained by me, and with no interest in us hiring anybody else. Because that would require my mother to make a decision. The closest thing to a decision my mother has ever come to in years about Hatoria has been inviting all of you here. Sorry, asking for your help here. An invitation would suggest that it didn't have urgency. And this is the point where Casey can... the door creaks open, and like you find Luth and Strange up to their elbows in the guts of Klingon equipment.
Hello. I'm here to offer any assistance I can before I retire to bed.
Right, okay, yeah. Looks at Luth, looks at Casey.
Are you going to break anything?
No. No, I shan't.
Luth picks up a hyperspanner and like kind of like he throws it technically to Casey, but slightly aggressively. Like it's fastball special thing. It's think fast, Casey, and just throws it. So it's down to like if you want to roll, I guess.
Nope.
But like it's down to you on how this goes.
Nope, I'm not. He doesn't catch it. I think it's like clumsily like palmed up against his shoulder, and then there's a little stumble grab, and then it hits the floor, and he looks at it. I dropped your hyperspanner.
You did. Do you still wish to assist?
No. Thank you for that test of my manual dexterity. I do not think I am fit for work.
Ensign, I can happily release you. We suppose we can finish some of the final diagnostics in the morning. I will stay here, but I usually do most nights.
Fair enough. In that case, good night.
Good night. Immediately just gets back to work. And the two of you can stumble out. Well, one of you can stumble out as Strange. You're now in an underground corridor leading up towards where the suites are. Well, underground corridor leading up to the main body of the hall with a somewhat staggering Casey.
It was a good party.
It looks like it was. Yes.
Yes.
How was it aside from very blood winey?
Oh no blood wine. Well, yes, blood wine, not blood rain. Two different things. This was the civilized consumption of blood wine, which is infinitely preferable to the alternative involving buckets. Yes, no, this was very civil, a little tense at times. In one particular time, you're going to need to be careful around Kvek.
Which one's Kvek? I've
sister.
only met Luth. The sister, right? Yes, he did mention.
Yes. Yes. There seems to be family drama afoot, and I'm not particularly good at that, and so I'm going to sleep off this and hydrate first. It's impossible to hydrate once you're asleep without assistance.
Yes, that.
I'm going to hydrate, I'm going to sleep, and then I'm going to do some science tomorrow. And that's how
Yeah.
I planned my day. So,
Good.
did you guess on well? Have you made progress? Is there anything? Don't tell me now. In fact, I will remember it, but I'll regret remembering it.
Okay, I'll tell you in the morning then.
Okay. Well, I'm down here. Good night. And he stumbles away.
Stumbles off.
Savage, brutal.
And yes, like Strange will have been shown where he can birth. They're very comfortable rooms. They're clearly guest rooms.
Hell yeah.
And around the
Watch Casey. He'll watch to make sure Casey actually gets into the room at least.
Lie down in front of the door. No, he gets in.
Make sure he's not kind of just going to fall in on the doorway and not actually make it into the room.
If he wasn't mildly inebriated, he probably would have felt really awkward about going to a different room to Adam. But he is. So he's just, okay, bye.
Thank God for blood wine.
Hell yeah.
At around about
I guess I'll feel awkward for both of us.
at around about this time, Talandra at her room will, like, there'll be a knock, and for arriving will be Mehed. Commander, I apologize for disturbing you at this late hour. However, the Lady Rahtekk has requested an audience with yourself. Also, your second, whom I will retrieve from the Great Hall.
Thank you.
If you come with me, I will have Lieutenant Kantos brought. Mehed will break off and let Anna escort Talandra down, and Mehed will then will appear from Kantos's perspective in the main hall, while there's still some drinking. It's hitting that low. We're the last 5 people.
Yeah.
Stage.
At this point, Candace is probably looking for, because when you got to that few people, it then becomes kind of awkward to be the one who then says, "Well, I'm off to bed," because you're going to be the one who kills the entire rest of it.
Yeah, and that will be the excuse for someone else to be like, "You're right."
Yeah, exactly.
Mehed approaches.
This wrong accent.
Lieutenant, I apologize for disturbing at this late hour. However, Lady Rahtekk has requested the presence of yourself and your commander. If you would join me?
Yes, yes, of course. If you'll excuse me, folks.
Dean will laugh. Well, I'm sure my mother has nothing other than platitudes to give you. I'm terribly sorry it will be so tiresome. However, this is probably the time. And they start to break up the evening.
Nonetheless, duty calls. But thank you for a very pleasant evening.
Deal. And the 2 of you will be brought to the private rooms of Lady Rahtekk. Mehed will open up the door first, lead you into a fairly cozy room. It has a roaring fire, a lot of kind of plush furs on the floor and the walls. She is sat in what looks like the closest thing to Klingons have to a big sort of comfortable armchair. She is out of the formal robes and is much plainer things. She's thinner and smaller than she looks in the robes. Is sat. Commander, Lieutenant, please make yourselves comfortable. Thank you for attending on me. I know it has been a long evening. She nods to Mehed, who does. He closes the door, but he does stay inside, kind of waiting to one side. I have to be honest with you about the nature of, or the reasons for why I've requested the assistance of Starfleet here at Hatoria. Obviously, there truly is this issue with the Tugh'non. My world is greatly afflicted in ways which I am not equipped to be able to resolve, but there is something deeper. as you may be able to tell, I have fewer years before me than I do behind me. And Klingon houses, the role is usually hereditary. The rulership of Hatoria and all of our assets will fall to my successor. Regrettably, my eldest, Makag, was lost, died in a hunting accident 2 years ago, which has rather thrown the succession into some question. I had not thought it was necessary for me to prepare my younger children. Kvek is impulsive and difficult. Judim is self-indulgent. And Luth would be happier to spend his life in his workshop. So you see, whilst I know I have sat back and I allowed Kvek to challenge you, Commander, and I allowed Judim to speak of unspeakable acts at my table, I wanted to see what they would do now that a crisis is at our door and a situation is before us, see if any of them would step up. And I wanted, I will confess, to see how Starfleet responded to them, to my people, to our ways. Which is why I have asked for both of you, because if you will forgive me, Commander, whilst I have no doubt of your capabilities as a leader, I also wanted one here who, it seems, may have a little bit more of a bead on the heart of the Klingons. But I believe that what is necessary of my request will take both of you. You may be familiar with the tradition I am about to name, but you will not truly be familiar with it. I require an arbiter of succession. You may know of the process from the the succession of the Chancellorship. It was the arbiter of succession at present for the Empire remains Captain Picard. But that is a derivative of the oldest traditions of the succession of households. I cannot easily request this of another Klingon or of another Klingon house. There are always vultures right now circling a House of Rahtekk. My lieges would see this as a sign of weakness if we needed this dispute resolved by them. Others would see it as an opportunity to exploit my house's weakness for their own gain, select someone who would be of benefit to them. So, rather than open myself up to the House of Rahtekk deciding that we are too weak, if that happens, they may instead declare themselves stewards of Hatoria and our holdings upon my death. I would like one of you, but certainly to be assisted by the other. The title is not truly what matters, to act as arbiter of succession for me. There are, in truth, what this means is that out of you would nominate who will become the head of the house upon my death. There is something of a procedure. Mahed will assist you if you accept in navigating the Klingon rituals, but of course understand that what I want is your different perspective to cut through the problem, as our traditions and our ways have not been able to resolve this problem. And I would suggest that you only make this decision once your task here is complete. The situation on Hatoria will, I expect, force my children to show something of themselves. But before I get ahead of myself, do I have an answer?
Landra is going to glance at Kantos, mostly to get a bead on sort of their attitude rather than looking for an answer, you know.
Mm-hmm. So Cantus was going to do the same for Talandra as well. So let's give me a very informative glance. What Cantus is probably kind of projecting with the body language is they're in principle kind of on board with this. This, sounds like it is something we could do. But whether that's something we should do, that's kind of
like literally
that's what they're looking to Talandra to. It's like, well, I want to say yes, but I'm going to check with my logic Vulcan.
Oh no, I'm gone too.
Oh no.
Well, my logic Vulcan's gone invisible, so I haven't got a fucking clue what my answer is, Lady Rahtekk.
You can still hear me, can't you?
Yeah, we can.
Still hear
It's
you,
just the camera
it's
turned off.
just no visual.
Also, push my fucking door too.
Is there a scrambling?
No.
Oh,
There's a scram boy.
Scram boy.
It's so loud.
my logic
So-
Vulcan has reappeared.
So Talandra, like literally, I can see the expression. It's one of. So like, Talandra takes everything she needs from that moment and will turn back. I understand that this is a great honor you pay us, but we are strangers to your world, to your people, and to your family. Is that what you want?
I know my family inside and out, and this is not a situation I can resolve. I know this world inside and out, and this is not a situation I can resolve. One of my children must show greatness. I have been thus far unable to bring it out of them. I cannot do this. No other Klingon could do this without opening ourselves up to ruin. But the Federation are our allies. Starfleet officers are, dedicated to the truth?
Yes.
It is your perspective as outsiders that I truly want.
In which case we accept.
If I name you, Commander, as Arbiter, whomsoever I name as Arbiter, whilst in practice for most people it will not matter, it will require, that will be whoever can speak the most publicly, present and conduct certain rites, nothing too heinous, but they must be the face of this. However, they would also likely be exposed directly to the discontent of Kvek. I do not wish to cause any insult either way. I do not know what would be expected, if it would be expected that a subordinate would do the role and the commander would oversee the entire operation here, or if it would be an insult for you as the commander to not hold it. You may decide between you who will be the face, but I sorely request that the most piercing logic of the heart of the Federation is brought into this just as much as the warm human face.
Of course.
If it is Kvek's ire that concerns you, it would be easier for me to take the title, allowing Lieutenant Kantos to continue with relative ease.
Oh, I'm sure she can be awful to both of you. I'm just pointing. I'm sure there are many advantages and disadvantages to either way. But it will require you to perform and conduct some ceremonial duties, which Mehed, I'm sure, will appraise you of.
Understood.
Very well, then. I will thus name you tomorrow morning as the arbiter of succession. If certainly the Lieutenant Cantos is placed with you, then that will make it clear that the two of you will be acting in this, and I will make that clear. However, beyond that, whilst you may ask anything of me, of information or of assistance, I will give you no further instructions. The reassurance I must give is that whilst I will not be bound to your judgment, politics, so long as if I do not die, if I die without pronouncing an heir, then your judgment would be binding. If you made a decision and I went against it, I'm sure I could pass it over if necessary. Starfleet outsiders. I do not intend to, but I wish to assure you that whilst this has severity behind the decision, it is not like you are completely tying my hands. But it will give my decision more weight, especially as it will stop this from seeming so personal for my children.
Understood.
I understand.
I will let you rest. Mehed, I'm sure, can tomorrow give guidance upon the steps to come. There are some ceremonial matters, and again, I encourage you to utilize your Starfleet ingenuity and approach in however you see fit in adjudicating, determining, or testing candidates for succession.
We shall be sure to perform our duty with rigor.
Thank you. Now it is late and I will let you rest.
Thank you.
Mehed will guide you out and escort you back to your suites. And if that's it, I think that's where we're going to take a break.
Gosh.
Well,
Well, I promised you Klingon politics.
you did. You did that.
What time do you want us back?
This does look like some Klingon nonsense.
See what we've got here.
Bye.
Well,
What up? We're back from the break. I could have set a time, like I could have made a guesstimation. It probably wouldn't have been a lie, but I didn't want to lie to you, good people. I will never lie to you.
it's all lies.
That is a lie.
One who
So-
speaks the truth, the other only lies.
God, I said I'm sorry. So we pick up the morning after the night before in Caverns Hall. Some of you are glad that you have brought a change of uniform. Some of you are perfectly fine. Some of you are Sam Casey,
Oh,
who is filled with regret.
no, it happened again. No.
Insofar as with the briefing packages that you have had, there is the expectation that Lieutenant Casey, assisted by Ensign Strange, will today return to the workshop of Luth to continue to see if the Iskandar systems can shed any light upon the samples where Luth appeared to have hit a bit of a dead end. Lieutenant Zal is liable to meet up with teams from the Iskandar, including Dr. Burov, to set up the relief station for the good folks of First Point. And I mean, I guess Kantos and Talandra might be about to get up to some shit. And indeed, for everyone over down at the breakfast at the main hall, which is clearly set up as, it's been a bit more set up for your benefit, but it is quite heavily an amount of coming and going as an option. But still, with all three of the children of Rahtekk present, whilst people are able to get like basically either porridge or meat is pretty much Klingon breakfast fare. Here's a point where Rahtekk will stand. Hear me now. After deep consideration, it is my honor to announce a new future for the House of Rahtekk. With the loss of my beloved son Makag, the question of who will inherit the house has been called into great question. So, I am hereby announcing that I have chosen an arbiter of succession to decide who will follow me upon my death. That arbiter will be none other than Commander Talandra. She will be aided by Lieutenant Kantos to bring the wisdom of our friends and our allies upon our house and its future. Even Luth kind of raises his eyebrows a bit at that, and Judim looks... he frowns. Kvek fairly predictably shoots to her feet. Mother, you are saying that you intend to allow the future of this house, for that to be a decision handed into the hands of Starfleet? Rahtekk nods and looks as if she's about to press on, but Kvek barrels over her in this. How dare you? How dare you ask these outsiders to intervene? Do you remain so riddled or addled with guilt? Makag is long dead. He did not even have a warrior's death. And you are incapable of seeing the future, and you are too weak to decide? I recognize nothing of this process. I do not recognize your judgment, Mother, and I do not recognize the arbiters. She not only turns to go, but as she turns to go, she waves a sharp hand at one of the cluster of some of the warriors about the hall, and about a half dozen of them do peel off and join her as she stalks out through the main doors.
Do all of the cluster that she's waved at follow?
Actually, yes, the ones that she yeah, it's a bit of a broad gesture.
Oh, okay.
But like there is sort of definitely in the direction in which she has waved, that lot will go. Like a couple of others peel off to join her. So it's a combo of definitely some of these were her henchmen, but some may not have immediately been her henchmen and still followed. A bit of a stunned silence at that until Judim looks up. My congratulations. I'm sure that your wisdom will prevail for the best for the house. Luth looks up. I think that this is a distraction and a mistake, but it is not as if my judgment is one that anyone has sought in this. Anyway, I will be in the workshop. Lieutenant Casey, Ensign Strange, please join me at your convenience. He skulks off.
Going straight with him. Because...
Yep. Fuck this. Bye.
That's nice.
A reason to leave.
A reason
good.
to leave this awkward situation. Good.
Peace.
Breakfast continues, and afterwards Mahed will invite we'll say fairly openly to Talandra and Kantos that he will speak with them and they can make plans to proceed, and that announcements will come shortly after. So that's the point where Zal is approached, in fact, by Siha, the marshal. Lieutenant, I believe that you will be one who will be conducting and leading the organization of the Starfleet Relief Station to be built at First Point.
That is correct, yes.
I have been asked by Lady Rahtekk to attend and assist upon this.
Oh, wonderful. In that case, let's go and liaise with my officers.
Very good. We can take my vehicle. She will, in really what's like basically a Klingon Land Rover, in the way that's the car really rich people who live in the middle of bumfuck nowhere have. It's rickety but formidable machine. She will drive Zal down and can meet up with the arranged team emerging at this point from the belly of the landed Iskandar, which is Dr. Burov, and a team from with Lieutenant of Operations Officers with Lieutenant Kowalski at their head.
It just opens with Burov and Kowalski have been nattering for some time. Because I imagine those two can form something of a recursion loop of enthusiasm.
Yes, like, oh, look at this. And I mean, I've never been to a Klingon world, but Klingon terraforming, I wonder what that does. And I don't mean scientifically, like, you know, the hillsides, the views.
Do you think it's important that they have a sort of aesthetic view that they look at when they come down to the planet, or do you think that doesn't matter to them so much?
I mean, they do that. Do they do, like, is there like a rural idyll for Klingons? Is that a thing that they care about?
A sort of pastoral scene, but with rocks and warriors.
I mean, they clearly like the hillsides because it goes like it's good farmland. I don't really know much about farms, but it looks like it's good farmland. It's green. There's fields, but then you've got those mountains and big hills. Oh, Lieutenant.
Hello. How are we?
Ready and eager to get to work, sir.
Yep, top shape of the morning.
Well, en route to where we're going to be putting together our relief post, you're going to see a lot more of this scenery, so keep your eyes open for that.
Really excited to see the city. Excited to see the city, sir.
I guess they both look at Sihar and a kind of...
This is Sihar. What's the word? He does not forget.
Marshall.
Marshal of the House, and who will be aiding us in this operation. Sihar, this is Dr. Burov, and rank.
Lieutenant. He's Lieutenant Junior, right?
He doesn't just bark rank at the poor guy. Lieutenant Kowalski.
We are most grateful for your assistance here.
You have a lovely home.
Thank you. You will get to see more of the city itself. At present, I am not anticipating much need for your work, Doctor, but as time goes on, that may change, and so it was thought advisable that we set up your post here in the city sooner rather than later.
Of course. And it will help to have some long-term data going forward.
As you say, for the shelter, if we can set up the emergency replicators here, it is very much my aspiration that those in need from across Hatoria can travel to First Point to take what they need. I am sure that you have protocols in place if there are hotspots, but we are not expecting anything serious yet. But you may be able to make sure that, if nothing else, it may alleviate tensions, as obviously matters can get out of control very quickly when people feel like they are unsure from where their next meal is coming.
Sure, that's understandable.
So you set off. You all pile. Well, you've got like your own vehicles as well, because I guess that's a thing that Starfleet would have, even if it's just like a fucking flatbed, to be able to roll towards First Point. Again, it's like a sharp contrast of a settlement in that there's this sort of red stone, old kind of no higher than 2-story old buildings, which are very lived in, lots of kind of colorful adornments and decorations. And you get a real feel of the actual Klingon aesthetic. They like bright colors, and even if they're kind of more on the red variety, but they do like colors to adorn and decorate on these things, and a lot of carving work, and those are more along the outskirts of where you roll through, and that place, these areas seem normally inhabited. There is a normal level of people to what you would expect for this sort of build-up, But as you move to sort of a northern edge where there's a bit more of a flat area for you to build up, you're a bit more between there and the more industrial area. And the industrial area is where things look quiet, especially anything in the vicinity of the big ass pokey spaceport, which obviously is seeing no traffic when normally there would be traffic. And there are no off-worlders here to deliver anything or pick anything up. It's mostly Kowalski's team who can set about doing the heavy lifting, the building up. Let's pop up a prefab shelter or two, and let's get emergency replicators set up. And Zal is, whilst a combination of supervising and literally providing some of the security to make sure that this place is not going to get harangued by locals.
Sure.
And it's and also one of the prefabs for Burov and for Burov to set up their little advanced medical post. It's while some of the security is being set up, which is more like just make sure you got some people at the doors and a little bit more of a patrol kind of going up and make sure there's a presence. Sihar will speak with, we'll grab Zal during this bustling montage of Starfleet business. Lieutenants, obviously this relief station should be treated as Starfleet undertaking. They're your resources and your people. I do have worries at my disposal if you have any need for further assistance.
In that, are you offering your continued assistance, or are you expressing a desire to relieve yourself of assistance?
I'm not trying to assume my own duty, Lieutenant.
No, forgive me. I just misunderstood what you had said.
I understand that this is your operation. I know this city. I know these people. Their well-being is very much usually my responsibility. I do not wish to overstep and position my people here if you have this matter in hand and can return to my everyday matters of patrols of the city. Or if you think that it would be beneficial, I can lend myself or some of my warriors.
We have no Klingon members of Starfleet aboard the Iskandar, so your council would be certainly in this initial setup period while we're establishing ourselves with the locals, most welcome. However, if there are pressing matters that will draw you into the city, then you do not need to ask my permission to leave.
I will do my duty and lend you assistance where it is tenable. You should be mindful of the fact that most of those who live here are simple peasants. They have little ambition, drive, or capacity for the higher calling of the warrior. You may find them different to your expectations if you do not have much experience of Klingons within their own borders.
I do not, so that is already invaluable information.
You may find them more dour and unimaginative than many warriors.
I see.
And after dropping a bit of classism, she sets about her proper work.
Nice.
For Dr. Burov, got a little medical relief station. And like this area is already it's starting to draw up a bit of interest, if nothing else, from the locals. For the emergency replicators being set up, like Kowalski is making sure that like transmissions are going out about the planet to inform people of this is what we can supply, this is what you should show up only if you need it, etc., etc. And before long, we'll have a little bit of a clustered group outside of kind of the main. Get a little palisade because that's a nice place to keep this fucking secure. Kowalski has a small gathering of locals where he's getting to hop up onto a box and do a bit of like this. You need this to do this, and please form an orderly queue and wait your turn, etc., etc. But there will be before anyone's. Well, actually, I think it's like over the course of the morning, Burov will be visited, but it's clear that like these are Klingons who have like sprained wrists and minor cuts and bruises. In fact, make me an empathy check and a medicine check to see what you understand.
And medicine. backbone of a good Dr. Burrow.
I was like, what are you going to find out? Oh, no, wait, this is both things.
Sorry, I had Talandra's sheet open because I'm a fool.
You're a fool.
Okay, so that is a 4 on the empathy
Cool.
and a 6 on the medicine.
Excessive, frankly, for this situation.
Hello, I'm a Starfleet doctor. Who
Yeah.
likes people.
So Burov can very quickly tell that a lot of the people who are showing up here don't really need their assistance, but they in this entire setup are a novelty. That it is interesting to show up and get this. However, when assessing these people, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking for Burov because of Burov's background, but if Burov were a regular Starfleet doctor, they would probably be quite surprised at the basic health of these people in this day and age. It is much more the sort of level of like signs of medical care that from the miners, bones which have not been reknit as perfectly as if that you had Starfleet equipment, indications of people being overworked, somewhat, not like massively overworked, not massively malnourished, but you would think, especially as the Klingons are capable of patching people up again, these people are not receiving a standard of healthcare consistently over the course of their lives that is at all comparable to what they would have in the Federation.
Arcady is going to be keeping track. The reason why they're perfect, I mean, also because they're a good person and a doctor, but the reason why they're perfectly content to patch up scrapes and bruises is because also they are collecting data on the malnutrition levels of these people in case like everything takes a disastrous turn and they can have some early data to draw on. But also like, noting down all this stuff about health and like, but fundamentally, they are quite good at talking to people who don't live in the Federation, who live quite hard lives. Like this probably reminds Arcady very much of their first ever medical station that they set up on Rakoya Minor, because the ability to natter away to someone who's doing work whilst not being a sort of patronizing Starfleet doctor kind of thing.
Yeah, they don't seem, everyone is tense. Everyone is tense about the situation. Everyone is stressed about what's going to happen. But there are as yet no real signs that they are facing starvation. They talk about like disruptions to their supply lines, which is as much about like their work as it is their food. This is a stage before this is a problem, and most of the indications of malnutrition, like, well, clearly some of these people had like maybe some shitty harvests while they were growing up, but that didn't do them much good because that happened when they were growing lads and lasses and everything.
Though I think Arcady will do the same thing that that Strange did with Luth, if only because like getting people to have a bit of a kvetch is kind of the way of getting information, of just being like, oh, you don't have to tell me about supply lines. Oh, I'm sure that must have made your job really hard.
Yeah, there's a bit of grumble, but most of them generally express that the House of Rahtekk must have made the right decision in bringing in Starfleet. Though about a few hours into their work, there will be things have like petered off. Like Burov isn't seeing anyone at this exact minute, and there is another Klingon who arrives. She's a middle-aged woman wearing very practical clothes, bit heavy set. Appears in the door. Doctor?
Yes, come in.
Thank you. You're not seeing anyone right now?
Free as a bird.
Good. I don't need medical assistance.
Oh, very well.
My name's Bariel. Something of a community leader around here.
Oh, lovely to meet you. Would you care for a cup of tea?
Oh, yes. make tea for this burly Klingon farmer lady.
Everybody wants a cup of tea if they're going to have a serious conversation.
I wanted to get the measure of you because Sihar comes along and always makes her promises about how things are going to get better, but I don't really know how much Rahtekk tells Sihar. You've got a lot of very busy-looking warriors out there and some very busy-looking builders, but everyone was saying that you were happy to talk a bit.
Of course, yes. I might need to take a quick break if something happens, but I'm very interested in getting to know the community more.
It's good. It's good. Because, see, my concern is always going to be here that the House of Rahtekk would rather make sure that they don't look bad rather than things not be bad, if you follow me.
Bosses are always more interested in saving face.
Exactly. And I don't really know how things work in the Federation, but we are the workers and the peasants, and they are the nobles, and we're not really the ones whose word stories, whose names are sung about, whose troubles are heard of. So you hear a lot of things about Starfleet, and I suppose I wanted to see for my own eyes how true they are.
I suppose for the same reason that people only hear the great tales of your noble families. People tend to hear about deeply heroic acts or deeply heinous acts that Starfleet have been involved in, but a lot of it's just getting on with the day-to-day, really.
Guess what I'm asking is, we can't really give you much in return for any of this.
Evans, no. I think on the ground, we don't need anything in exchange for offering help. And I think in the much bigger term, the Federation are helping their allies, and the Klingons will probably help in a different way in return. So,
House politics.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably not the most helpful person to ask. I wasn't born in the Federation, so a lot of this is relatively new to me.
Yeah, but you're working here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to keep working here.
Of course.
And your job is to put up this help station thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't see why I should be talking to someone above your head.
Well, I am the chief medical officer here, so if we're talking about helping people, that's sort of all I do. Plus, you might have gathered I'm not a warrior.
Neither am I. We're not all warriors.
No. So, they're out there building and focusing on perimeters and queues and things, and
Finding something to sing about.
I just want to make sure people are healthy.
I like doctors. You tend to make sure that you patch people together and don't ask for too much in return.
No. Sometimes a cup of tea or a good conversation. But people are busy. Some people don't have time for that.
All right, now you're going to find that you're going to be talking to soon enough. People are all right now, but your curiosity. I think soon enough, your Starfleet are going to have to deal with people who are stressed, people who are maybe a little bit worried. And when we Klingons get worried, we tend to get angry.
Yeah.
And you might not get as much help. House of Rahtekk will make lots of promises, but they've been making lots of promises to me for many years.
You know these people.
I do.
People of the town.
I'd like to be able to give them good news. Or at least reasons to hope.
Well, I trust the science and engineering division of the Iskandar. They are some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. If there is a problem here with your crops, with your land,
So they say.
They will get to the bottom of it. And if you are concerned that there are bigger problems than just the crops, they will get to the bottom of that too.
I suppose really what I'm asking... Well, there are a lot of things I'm asking, but Rahtek's whelp. The boy, well, if I say the boy who's never worked a day in his life, there's two of them. Luth. He said that what was needed was to burn my fields. Said that it was infected and there was definitely some damaged crops, but well, I've been farming and my family have been farming for this many generations. It's a bit of a bold statement of him to say that that's what's necessary. He says it's necessary and it's good and necessary for the house and for the planet. If Starfleet need that as a solution and then they leave, we are going to starve and die.
As far as I am concerned, if there is a plan that means lessening the already dwindling food supply, then there is a plan in place to ensure you are fed, or I won't leave.
I don't know how many of your Starfleet replicators it'll take to feed her planet, fix the planet, and Rahtekk won't want it because what are they going to do if they can't bring out the crops and feed the whole of the Klingon Defense Force from here? Breadbasket of the Empire here. But
I'm not going to lie. It might get harder before it gets better. But
we're used to that.
But if it gets harder because of a scientific solution, then we can bring more replicators. We can bring more ships. Your people won't starve.
I'm going to look you in the eye here, and I get that you're just the doctor and not the captain. So, I want you to tell me, look me in the eye and tell me that that is the truth as you know it.
So our captain is not with us. We have the commander. But there is not a single officer aboard our ship who would abandon starving people to die.
We're not warriors, you and I. Doesn't mean we can't have our honor. So I will hold you to that, Doctor. And I will bring that word to the people.
I would insist on it, Barya. It's important that people know that the Doctor has principles.
It's important that people know that people have principles.
But also, if you're going back to them, I've done a few little medical tests this morning. And some people were a little embarrassed because they were coming with injuries that they thought they could just shrug off. For as long as I'm here, I don't care how tiny the injury is, you're welcome to bring anyone to see me.
We're not usually used to having this kind of help, and I don't mean to... You're so small. We are tough. We are tougher than you. People can be proud and stupid, yes. In fact, the bigger and tougher they are, often the prouder and stupider they are. But you might not understand because you are very tiny.
You'd be surprised at how much I understand, despite my tininess.
Good.
I grew up in a place very like this, but instead of farming, it was mining. And I am sure that some farmers can be as big a blockheads as some miners.
I expect so. Good.
If I was a doctor,
claps Burov on the shoulder with Klingonness.
Good.
I will send them word, Doctor. I will tell them, and I will tell them to behave. But they will expect Starfleet to deliver, and expect you to be as good as your word.
That's all I have.
That is all any of us have really got.
Mm-hmm.
Nods, drains the tea.
Kapla.
Kapla. And she leaves.
Great.
Bro will stick their head out to check on the others and just be like, oh well.
I can't wait to leave these people to starve to death, though. That's gonna be good.
I'm in danger.
So yes, having made all these promises to them, let's cut to the science.
Hell yeah.
In Luth's workshop that morning. It looks as if the equipment by now will indeed have been synchronized up with the Iskandar. You can conduct some scans, or at least basic scans, and pipe it to your labs for analysis. But obviously, despite Luth's stubbornness, you're probably going to at some point need to get some of your shit into a lab on Iskandar. Like, he's not... This is a next step. Unless you get very lucky with the nature of this, he's probably not going to get his wish of keeping everything in the workshop. But yes, Luth will set up everything. I am confident in the work that Redoubtable Ensign Strange and I have been able to perform over the last night. So if we can run this through your most fascinating bioneural circuitry equipped processing of Iskandar's laboratory, shall we take another look at our samples, Lieutenant Casey?
Yes, let's.
Very good. And we start the science roll. I was trying to make this more of a thing, but
5.
Jesus.
I rolled 2 4s.
Roll. Okay, yeah, decent. A decent roll for Luth, but not as good. And like with Strange being able to monitor some of the data feed, etc. Lost him.
He scienced so hard he disappeared.
Have we actually lost him?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Just
Hi.
visuals.
Hi.
I went to the Mirrorverse briefly.
Oh,
It sucked.
The weird place. Don't go there.
Yeah, so for the next few hours, you and Luth can get into another montage. This isn't the building montage, this is the science montage with like looking into things and holding samples up to the light and like, you know, posing for pictures for various royalty-free stock images, which are eventually going to go in a magazine somewhere, because that's what science. Yes, this is what science looks like.
I'm trying to think what's the Klingon or Starfleet equivalent of that blog that's bad stock images of people doing their jobs, like when you search for stock image of engineer and it's just somebody in a hard hat looking thoughtful into the middle distance.
What you quite rapidly identify upon the samples, which is something which could be picked up by, obviously, but it couldn't be picked up by this equipment, you didn't see it, but could be picked up by this equipment, but he didn't have enough of a decent matter of analysis equipment, is there is a fungus. There is indications of fungal spores upon the samples, which, like, once Casey notices it first and asks Luth, and Luth's very much like, that's not a normal thing that should be there, and you can start to dig into it more. What it appears is that this is likely the cause of the Tugh'non, as this is a fungal growth, which, when growing on these plants, it seems to provide a surplus of an acid, which, as a natural kind of biological acid, which when Casey goes, it's doing these things, this, and this, we'll go, the Jipang acid is clearly a botanical term with which he is familiar, which it is causing the hypertrophy in the crops. It is essentially massively accelerating the growth, and in a disproportionate way. It is why the stems are growing long and thin but not seeding, and thus it is also why some of the leaves are going brown and and dying. I know my science. I did a lot of research on Wikipedia. The chlorosis, it's inducing the rapid chlorosis and the etiolation.
Can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, yeah, it's rapid growth. It's bad. It's weak and it's gonna fall over.
Yeah, we're talking about the crop,
Yeah,
not me.
Yeah, and so it appears to at least be directly engaging with the local botany in that it is increasing the levels of acid already which are within this crop, which is causing this. Luth also will run some further with Luth's advice. You run some further tests, which the least seem to suggest as he talks about the variety of locations from where these samples are. This stuff is probably pretty persistent and tough. As he will frown and look at it. I do not believe that any of the antifungal solutions which I'm familiar will be able to make much of a dent into this. But if we keep looking here, we might be able to find more. Make me another science check, Casey.
It's not as good. It's only a 2.
That's still good enough. If this is something which is that fucking virulent, what you think is going to be the best is, again, to get samples onto the Iskandar, to try to get a full genetic spectral analysis of the stuff, to try to figure out if you can genetically engineer something specifically designed to kill this, something which is going to break it down on a molecular level if necessary, because and also then you might get a better idea of exactly why it's so tough, why it's looking this persistent.
Yes, and would tracing the source and getting samples of the origin of the source help in the development of, presumably the next step being the development of a biofungicide?
Yeah, a fungicide would be good. Yes, knowing where it started is always going to be useful. Having some concept of where it started, where it spread from, and all of that is all going to be useful, especially if it is this virulent. It may be changing relatively rapidly as it mutates and passes and moves around.
Then yes, I think those will be the next steps. Moving the sample, or at least whatever sample you could spare onto the Iskandar for further study. Locating its source, we might also need to look at, given its rapid onset, we probably need to recalculate and reevaluate the measures that we've taken to stop its spread. It might be that we need to temporarily close down any movements of crops within a radial area in order to ensure that it doesn't transmit any further.
They've been found in some of the crops here and around First Point. That was the first confirmed case, because that was what I found here a few weeks ago. But if it's here, and if it's, depending on how easily it travels, it could have spread across the entire world by now. People here, people brought all of their crops here to sell. Everything comes through First Point.
Are there scientific minds around the planet that we could liaise with in order to get some discrete samples? If we devise a means of testing, we can see if that hypothesis is true, and it is a planet-wide phenomenon.
Oh, it is. Well, you say planet-wide. It's certainly almost entirely. Let me. Already, we've lost 20% of the crop, of our crops here. Some regions have reported up to 50%. Last time we've had somewhere in the region of 3/4 of all regions have reported cases of Tugh'non. It is anywhere which hasn't is trying to shut down, but it is. However, you may be onto something there. Is it doesn't just because this was where we found it doesn't mean that was where it started.
Yes,
I do not know There was first reports of a lost harvest in a region to the north, Lemus. At the time, I thought it was nothing but a consequence of bad crop management. It was only a week later that I found the Tugh'non here. So I suppose if I send out word and we try to gather as many samples from as many of these regions as possible, we might be able to better identify which are the oldest, and that will give us a better idea of the timeline.
Yes, we will essentially be able to triangulate an origin point, and then we can take our investigation there.
And then we can... I can send out word for that. And in the meantime, I would feel considerably more content if we could conduct our examinations and observations from here.
I understand that need. I can say with full sincerity, it will be more expedient if I have the full capacity of the Iskandar's laboratories. So what assurances that do you need in order to provide comfort and capacity to aid us aboard the ship rather than here?
It's not about my comfort. It is about the best way forward for the people, and it will not do well for them if it looks as if we were too weak to be able to do anything about this ourselves. It's not my comfort. I'm not a child.
Oh no, I haven't meant to insinuate that you are. It's just it's clear that this is bothering you, and I didn't understand why. But if it's the cultural ramifications of such a thing, I have a better understanding of it now.
What we could do is, whilst we start the initial tests on board the Iskandar, then some further work could be done to enhance the capacity of your workshop, Luth, so that more of the work can be done in here without us losing or spending any unnecessary time on the problem.
And that might allow us to better protect and predict against anything like this happening again. Very well, I'm curious to see your laboratory, but otherwise, if you can get some of the examination on a genetic level done, if we can see that, and then Ensign Strange and we can see about improving matters here. If that is, it is Ensign Strange would be, if that is your volunteering your time, Ensign.
Unless you'd prefer me to be working on board the Iskandar, Lieutenant.
Oh no, I'm not going to deprive you of going somewhere that you'll be useful. Please avail yourself.
I would prefer to not have to adjust to a different assistant, companion, colleague. Yeah.
No, you're in capable hands.
Well, then how about we proceed to your ship together? You can show me your laboratory on your working facility, and from there we can take stock, Ensign Strange and I, of what we can do to make my workshop better.
Sounds most amenable.
Good. And you appease the sulky Klingon.
Yeah. No, there's not going to be too much of this. Like, this is his one. But if it's like, well, I want to hamper this science further because I might lose cred another time, it's going to be, okay, mister, let's have a sit-down talk about your fifis.
Yeah, it might turn from less of a, well, I suppose we could do this, to, all right, pal, this is how it's going to work.
I was the good cop. I'm going to give you to the Scottish cop now.
All right.
We don't want Strange to be bad cop, though.
No, because it wouldn't actually be like that. Like he might say those words, but it wouldn't be.
You know what I did 3 days ago? I nearly wiped out the planet.
Listen here, pal. This isn't the first planet I've nearly wiped out in the last week, and it certainly
Not going to be the last.
could join the list.
It's a busy fucking week.
I've had a busy week, and I've no plans of being any less busy in the future.
I mean, to be honest, we both know that with the sad boys, it's you've done it now. It's bad cop.
Stop it.
Calandra! Bullying my sad boys.
That's how it actually goes.
We'll all get our mums to resolve this.
My mum could beat up your mum.
I've got 2 mums. That's twice the power.
Aye. We'll set both of his mums on your mum. See how you like that.
My
Your
mum's
mum's
will lie
old.
to you.
I mean, she's a tough Klingon, but she's
Oh,
older. But Talandra's not so much a warrior, but she is a Vulcan and she's very strong and she's a Starfleet. I would say Talandra has the edge, but only just.
Talandra's main character energy. So that's how that fight goes.
Yeah,
Like
but
it's
she has an aspect called I'm literally a pacifist. No, really. No, I really would rather we didn't. Oh, okay, I guess we're having a fight now. Oh god, I hate this.
so cutting to Talandra and Kantos, able to have like tea with Mehed after breakfast, in his very like humble fucking offices as the Jintak, where he clearly does a lot of the bookkeeping, and all of those matters. But there is like
Talandra likes this room.
like he does have like his bat'leth on the wall, which is pretty worn and a bit nicked and like well used but hanging up. So Arbiter, Lieutenant, the traditions in terms of how an arbiter should succeed and the succession rights should succeed are something which we can use and adjust. They are different in different places. This is already. It is Lady Rahtek's wish that you are unorthodox. Anything that you wish to know about the children of Rahtekk, I'm honor bound now to assist you with and tell you what I can. But I would encourage you to familiarize yourselves as best you can with them, somewhat more informally, before we try to set serious or demanding challenges. I know that whatever you do is hanging over all of them, and even over Lady Rahtekk, and she knows it, but I think will not admit to it as much as it is true, is the death of and the loss of Makag. It was sudden and disruptive. So I believe that the best thing to do after you have familiarized yourself, and I do not know how Starfleet will best, I will answer questions if there are people around. Word of this will travel, so people will, whilst they will know why you ask, I imagine that will probably make them more forthcoming than if they didn't know you were arbiters of succession, the arbiter and a second. But what I would certainly encourage as a starting point, once you are ready, is to begin, for a very old tradition of succession, the Jachuk, which is the opportunity for each of them to express why they are worthy to lead. I doubt that here we are going to run into the issue that it may take several days for them to account for all of their deeds, but it can be done somewhat formally. It can be done in the Great Hall. It is something which onlookers may witness, and it should give yourselves legitimacy in the process. As well, it will be an act in which you will summon them, which is an expression of your power as your status, if you understand.
Difficulty, as Rahtekk is almost certainly going to refuse.
Kvek?
Oh, yes, no, Rahtekk. House Rahtekk.
Yes.
Kvek will almost certainly refuse.
Yes, and I think it is very likely that at some point you are going to have to resolve the situation with Kvek. The good news there is that she will doubtless bring it to you. She will not need finding.
What would be expected of such a resolution?
Are there any particular traditions around resolving that kind of dispute around the Jashek?
Well, and just there is nothing specific in terms of forcing one to accept an arbiter, but it goes as how in if in Starfleet you do not immediately have your chain of command upon which to rely, how does a superior demonstrate their authority? Or do you just have your pips?
Authority is granted through rank, but through expertise in a situation. I have been a Starfleet officer for decades, and when dealing with other officers, I believe my seniority comes through.
Well, she did not respond well to you last night, Commander. She is, as has been said, often impulsive, impassioned. Those are the courteous words. If you cannot force her into her place, then the best that may be done is to make her believe that this is not an insult to her. Truthfully, we are beating around words too much. Do either of you know how to wield a bat'leth?
No.
Couldn't say with any skill.
He gets up, goes over to where the bat'leth is, but reaches for a cabinet beneath, opens it, and pulls out the mek'leth, which is the long single blade, sort of short sword. You have any skill which could transfer to a mek'leth?
Just gonna check if I've actually got any fighting
Two
points.
ranks in fight.
Yeah, do I have ranks in fight? I do.
Two. Pretty good.
Well,
Kantos is a pretty good fighter.
Kantos is a pretty good fighter. In that case, they'll have been a little more confident about their potential abilities with a bat'leth.
Yeah, I mean, but a bat'leth is a weird-ass weapon
Yeah,
still.
but still a bat'leth is a weird-ass weapon and it's clunky as fuck, having tried to wield a lot once. Bat'leths are the worst, don't.
I wouldn't.
Potentially. May I?
Please.
Candace will
Mhm.
take the mek'leth, stand back and out the way of everybody, and have a few kind of practice swings. Now,
it may not come to this, although I think that will be the first and easiest way. I would not no one would expect either of you to prevail against Kvek. She is a seasoned warrior. Indeed, it might, whilst beating her in a fight would force her to accept you as arbiters, it might even make her...
It might worsen the insult.
She may be more intractable even if she obeys. However, if, should it come to this, I'm considering our options, a demonstration of some martial prowess may make her feel respected, and as if you are respecting Klingon demonstrations of strength. Indeed, she may be sufficiently pleased if you show you have some skills and she can still kick you about, that it might make her mollified.
It does not come without significant risks, Lieutenant.
Oh, yes, that is true. She will, for all of her disrespect to her mother, I do not believe that Kvek is going to seek to kill a Starfleet officer who is here to assist our people. But obviously accidents happen.
Yes, and I was wondering if there are any precedents, shall we say, for this sort of fight being a one to the death rather than just to a defeat.
She has no grounds to challenge you to a fight to the death. She barely has grounds to challenge you. She could challenge you to demonstrate your worthiness as arbiter, whether or not you are worthy, either of you, for deciding the fate of a house as outsiders. She would do it on the grounds that you are not Klingon enough. But if you demonstrated willingness, readiness, respect for our ways, and basic prowess, that would undermine many of her objections, as also she has to... It is about appearance as well. Whilst there is only the family here, there are still the warriors who obey her, and word of this will travel to the House of Rahtekk. If she simply refused out of petulance, even though you do everything right, respect our ways, demonstrate this competence and engagement, she has no grounds by which to find your decision without standing. All she is doing is excluding herself from succession, which is not what she wants. She will want to succeed. I'm open to other suggestions, but the simplest ways as a warrior I find are often best.
Would certainly be one way to cut through the problem. Hand back the mallet.
Thank you. And it may be worth being ready anyway. You might not get a choice about this. Or at least she may force the situation before you have come up with a cunning alternative.
But should she challenge us to a fight, it would be deeply impolitic to refuse.
It would. Unless you could find
then.
reasons for her, the grounds of the fight being spurious.
That seems unlikely from what I've seen of Kvek thus far. I can imagine her challenging us to a fight, but I can't see her doing so on grounds that are wholly spurious.
Wanting for you to prove your mettle as arbiter and second, that is quite
Reason
reasonable.
enough.
Judim, I'm sure, will fall over himself to please you and assist you.
I'm sure he will. Speaking of falling over.
Someone knocked over my bin.
I'm quite certain that as I am resistant to his sister's threats, I will be resistant to his charms.
Most are more resistant than he would like to think. And Luth will be like trying to pull a fang. However, Luth you can deal with words, I have no doubt.
I believe while he is pursuing his goal of discovery, there will be very little fruit to be harvested there.
And yet it is necessary, and let us also not deceive ourselves. Young Luth is an engineer of considerable talent. He is not a botanist. He is the closest to an expert we have on this world and has applied himself most excellently to the situation. I do not believe, despite his pride, he will be essential to uncovering secrets that great Starfleet scientists will be poking at. That will offend him, if you tell him that it is more important that he worries about the future of his house than a task in which he is surplus to requirement. But I suspect that is true.
I'm sure a more diplomatic phrasing can be found.
I have known them all since they were children. I have known Luth since he is a child. He desperately wants the approval of his mother, of his peers, and refuses to seek it in any way they recognize. He has not yet accepted that if you do not wield a bat'leth, your battlefields are still ones of honor, even if they are not the sort about which Kvek and Judim will sing. There are many songs in this empire, and some of them are not even about drinking or bloodshed. But he is young and bitter. Words will bring him to the table, and words will be needed. And if you do not receive a presentation from all three, that will continue to undermine your legitimacy and the entire procedure.
Is it best to warn them that the announcement is coming?
Yes. They should be prepared. They should have the opportunity to prepare their words, their deeds, their worthiness. And then I think it would be best if... Sometimes that is all. The Arbiter of Succession has simply made their discreet inquiries and made a decision. Sometimes they have made discreet inquiries and held a jachuk. I think Lady Rahtekk would welcome if you have further ideas of what you would like to do, what you would like to see. Consider on what grounds you are making this decision and how you can test them. If you need my assistance, I'm sure I can, if necessary, find a way to make it more of a ceremony.
The siblings. What was their relationship with Makag?
Judim and Makag were close. Kvek fancied herself his rival. For me, that glitched and Mike literally just vanished.
Same.
Oh shit, he's ascended. Kvek fancied herself his rival when they were younger, could not actually rival him, and Makag was the kindly elder brother. She always tried to get out from under his shadow, and it was sometimes tense as a result. I do not think Luth ever appreciated how much Makag understood and valued him. Luth would always prefer to and will probably these days still insist that his brother was a warrior who was with a reputation for great prowess in battle and bloodshed, and was not smart enough or thoughtful enough. I do not know if Luth is blind or if Luth is grieving. But Makag always attempted and wanted the best for Luth and made sure that Luth received his education. But Makag would back him up silently because he knew that there was nothing worse for a little brother than for it to appear as if his big brother was the one fighting his battles for him. He would arrange matters behind the scenes. But I think Luth, certainly since Makag has died, Luth has felt like he is even more compared to the Klingon warrior that he is not.
Fascinating.
And yet also very simple.
Large families have a dynamic that is strange, but very interesting.
Well, I think you will have every opportunity to see the ins and outs of the family, Commander.
Yes, I do believe we will.
I will set about letting it known that the Jachuk is to be arranged. I'm sure that, if nothing else, will bring Kvek out from her hole. I encourage you in the meantime to make your inquiries. Many people will have different perspectives to me. And I welcome, and as does Lady Rahtekk, Starfleet ingenuity.
Thank you, Mehed. We hope to be up to the task.
I do not believe that there is a right answer here, Commander. Lady Rahtekk would like it to be so. That does not mean that there are no wrong answers, though. I will go make preparations.
Thank you.
Pops up and leaves you.
Do you have siblings, Lieutenant?
Couple. Both younger.
Ah. Hmm.
Yourself?
No. Just me.
Talander doesn't have anything else to say.
That's fine. I wasn't sure if that was leading to something like.
Yeah, it's like, is this the kind of sign that precedes more conversation? No.
No, well,
I think it's she looks down at the list and some of the information that they've had and her notes, and she's just like,
This could be quite interesting.
interesting is perhaps the word.
If anything, I think Kvek's going to be the easiest one to handle.
For a given value of easy.
She's straightforward. She's not going to hide behind any words. She's not going to try and bring herself up to be anything she's not. She's just going to... What we see is what we'll get. There's not going to be any bluff or swagger to her. Whereas Jadim's a blowhard. He'll try and turn on the charm offensive. Won't get very far.
No. Although,
And then there's Luth, who I've not met yet, so I can't comment.
it seems to me that Jadima may believe that he is able to charm you with his swagger. And whilst I do not encourage deception, he knows he will not get far with me.
I'm
Therefore,
happy to keep him talking.
you may be able to ascertain more information than I can.
Certainly based on what he was saying last night, he fancies himself a bit of a diplomat.
Indeed.
But his approach to diplomacy largely involves getting the other parties too drunk to make sensible decisions of their own.
I am happy to speak with Luth.
I feel like he'll, from the descriptions I've had and the brief bit I've seen of him, I think of the two of us, Commander, you'll be the one he'll respond better to.
Talander doesn't say sad, bitter science boys are my specialty.
Kantos knows that's what she's thinking, though.
we should get Talandra's dad on this.
Is Luth a twink?
By
Does-
Klingon
would-
standards.
Okay, in that case, yes, Luth probably would go into Talandra's dad's collection of science twinks.
Into the twink vault with you.
It may be that Kvek decides to challenge either of us. And of course, should that happen, accepting is the logical option. But I am concerned that although you are almost certainly the more prolific fighter, that she may also do you some severe harm. And
I
as
mean,
a Starfleet officer, while we put ourselves at risk daily, I cannot in good conscience put you in the line of that onslaught.
if I'm going to be the one who's handiest in that duel life, if and when it happens, then I'm happy to put myself forward for it. If we find an alternative option, then even better, because I don't particularly fancy being stabbed up by a Klingon woman, or any Klingon, for that matter. But if that ends up being the way things go, then that's the way things go, and let Dr. Burrow know before we kick off.
Yes,
I'm sure they'll have a lot to say about it.
almost certainly. I can hear it now.
Yes.
It is just something to be aware of.
It's not something I'd be taking that lightly. The risks involved are pretty plain.
It is why I hope that if she decides to threaten any of us, it is me. Which is why I took the title to begin with. Because whilst I would not revel being fought by a accomplished Klingon warrior, it wouldn't be the first time I have been significantly harmed in the line of duty. It is becoming something of a trend.
If I might be honest, Commander, that sounds like more of a reason not to. That's not necessarily the sort of trend one should continue with.
Talandra doesn't say, "You got me shot in the head."
Quebec just pulls a fucking disruptor and just shoots Talandra in the head.
Talandra instead will raise an eyebrow and say, "On the contrary, Lieutenant, I am still here."
I will wrap things up there.
That's
I
like
think
a good ending line.
for an end of this, as you contemplate who in this probable duel is going to have to throw down. That is where we will end things for the night. Thank you very much, people. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I had a lot of fun. Before I pass over to Izzy for the biz, we will be not having a session next week, as the lovely Emily will not be with us.
Lovely Emily will not be in a room.
Will not be in a room, and we will not be able to do so this. But however, in 2 weeks' time, we shall pick up with session 3 of So Shall You Reap. So I shall pass us over. That's all from me. I will pass it over to Izzy.
Whoop, whoop. What up, fancy lads and snazzy lasses and twitchy in-betweens? I don't know. Leave me alone. I'm very tired. I'm old now. I'm an elderly lady. I've aged a whole year in one day, and now I am dead. So I'll be quick, and I won't ramble. But after this point, usual drill. If you liked this session, then tell us. We are on Twitter. We are on Discord. We are on Facebook. If you are cool chums of ours, but if you're not, don't add us on Facebook. That'd be weird. We don't want that. But we love to hear your thoughts on the sessions. I'm sure Kath would love to hear you heap effusive praise onto Klingon Arrested Development. And if you didn't like it, then please don't tell us. We're very fragile, and we just.
I think fuck you if you didn't like it.
Kath says fuck you. Kath's energy is fighty. My energy is no, don't leave me alone. I'm too small for your criticisms. But yeah, anything like that. You know, we're on Twitter @UCrew. We are on Discord, where Discords are to be found.
And if you wish to support us in a more financial way, you may find us at patreon.com/itucrew. And speaking of the members of the extended trash fam, who are lovely, excellent, fabulous, effusive, and very attractive individuals, every single one of them. So get your trash bags in the chat, if you will, for this collection of people. I couldn't think of a phrase. So they're just, aren't we all just people deep down in our spleens? So much love and thanks to Dinkledor, the armchair Egyptologist, Ken Poyner, Kiwi Tokoeka, Photosynthetic, Eligos Alexander, Liz Murphy, Michael Kreese, Andre Cherepnin, Joe, Lou Sutcliffe, Araloki, Socky, Henry Prestige, Caffeine Kitty, Hobbs, _138, James Malloy, Mike Fielding, Michael Bowman, Mike Kilburn, our token Uggo, and of course, everybody's favoritely named member of the Trash Fam, the one, the only, the inimitable Helena Handbasket. Peace!